Alrighty, now the podcast is back for the new year. It is 2020. Hopefully, when I'm releasing this, I get it done in the next few days. And we're going to start by talking about our approach to things, how Tallest Tree does business, and it's a little bit different from other agencies. But maybe we should start by talking about how we used to do things.
Yeah, of course.
So how would you describe it? It used to be, clients would come to us and say, we need a website, or we need you to make this change to our website, or we need this, that, or the other. They'd sort of come to us with a solution in mind.
Yeah, basically we used to be a lot more agreeable to what we would do. That's the gist of it. But so yeah, whenever we would get work our way, we would just do whatever the client said, but both in the beginning and as the project went along and we got more requests, we would just usually say yes. Just the client knows best. But
yeah, that seems like the intuitive thing to do. Like the customer's always right. The customer says, I want this. You're very eager to make them happy and keep them as a customer, and to also make the money that you're making short term, because we have to do this for a living.
You just can't afford it.
You're just eager to take any work that comes through the door. But as time went on, it became clear that the customer didn't always know best, because we saw the next customer asked for the same thing as the last few people, and the last few people ended up kind of wasting money or coming back to us saying, well, what we asked for isn't quite working. It's not measuring up to what we want, and changing things over and over again. Or you just see somebody launch something and we'd look at the traffic or look at the other measurable results and say, that doesn't really seem to have achieved the goal that they came in the door with. We built exactly what they told us to build. But just it wasn't that what was built was wrong. It's that it's the strategy of why you chose to build that specific thing didn't seem informed by the right data or any data at all in some cases.
There will be many times where I really did not feel good about the work I was doing. I don't think I really ever wanted to bring that up to the client, because I didn't want them to feel like I was some authority for their business or whatever. So I just did the work anyway. This was both like in the beginning of projects when things hadn't started yet, and also another reason I sometimes didn't feel good was when the client came with more requests later. I mean, we were just billing by the hour, right? I think that time, and I would feel like the things that the client was requesting should have been planned for in the beginning. They were just basic features that any normal user would assume should be there. But because we were doing the bill by the hour approach, everything had to be accounted for in the beginning. That should be included.
So if somebody
so we
comes to
could
us
make
and says,
an accurate estimate for the client.
I'm trying to think of an example of this to help kind of illustrate. Like if somebody comes and says, we just need a landing page and a blog, get it up as fast as you can. You can do that, but then they come back and say, well, no, we really need this, this, and that, and we need that, and we need this other thing, and they keep adding functionality to it. And the way that you would build a super simple site versus a site that's going to have multiple content types and lots of different landing pages and allow them to move content around the pages or whatever the feature might be, you're going to build that in a different way to account for that complexity. So if you had known that from the beginning, you can build it with all that stuff in mind, as opposed to kind of building it with a certain set of assumptions there and then going back and kind of tearing all that stuff back out. So they end up spending more money in the long run by coming to you with just build this, and then more and more of those little requests, rather than here's kind of our whole plan for what we're doing, but we want to start with this piece. That would have saved the money, because we would have started with the right structure at least.
yeah. And yeah, I will just feel like we were nickel and diming them when they will come to us later with things that I felt should have been a part of the initial solution we were developing. So I never really was comfortable with that approach. I think the way we did it was we didn't purely build by the hour. We did an initial bid on the project, a fixed price, but anything after that will be built by the hour, right? Something like that. So if the client forgot something, too bad. We just had to build that by the hour, and the project could end up, because of that approach, the project could end up costing like 2 times what the client had expected, and no one was happy. I didn't feel good about it. The client felt like they were overpaying, I assume, and yeah. So overall, it was not a good approach. So we've solved some of these problems now. I think at least things are better.
Yeah. So we've solved that by saying, okay, in order to go fast and build something awesome, we first need to slow down and know where we're going. So we call that process road mapping, and this avoids some of those pitfalls because rather than us sort of just building whatever is requested, it's asking the client, like, tell us where you are going in advance. Like, let's plan this out. If we know all of your goals and, long-term goals, things that are in your board book, things that your organization is like structuring departments around, things that your donors are going to judge you by, we know all those things, then we can take all the experience that we have on the technical side of things, and the marketing side of things online, and say, oh, here's how to best achieve those. You actually shouldn't do this thing that you're asking us to do right now first. Or, if you want to do all of these things, we ought to be looking at this type of software to build your website on. Those uninteresting sort of things to the client, what software you're going to use. Yeah. But those things still have to be, it's better to consider those at the beginning and have this sort of holistic look at things rather than taking things piece by piece and then, ending up scrapping things or rebuilding things or the worst thing, I think, is just spending time on something that has next to no value, just because the client sort of assumes this is what we need. And they're going on off of their best understanding of things. Like maybe they've read something, another organization is using this solution, they've talked to peers. They do the research that people usually do when they're contracting with something that they're not experts about, right? You read an article, you ask your friends who have done things about it, you say, okay, I think this is what we need. But you wouldn't architect a building that way. Well, no. my friend who works at this insurance company says that they got a great building from these people. We'll build our building just the same way. Rather than saying, we should maybe hire an architect to design a good building for us too. And that's what we want to be, is more in that architect zone of saying, okay, at the start, rather than just taking your word that we should build an airplane hangar, maybe we should talk to you. Oh, you don't have airplanes, you have cars. Let's build a garage instead. Whatever. My metaphors are a little tortured here, but that's what we're trying to do.
But when we were first starting, at least I didn't really feel comfortable even talking about that stuff. So all I really worked from was just a list of tasks that had to be done without really understanding the end goal that well. And actually, I was surprised how open clients were to sharing their information about their business and where they wanted to go with me as much as they have, because I guess, I just had very wrong presumptions about how clients view developers in general, or I didn't really expect the reception to this change to be so good from our clients, at least. I was very pleasantly surprised by that. But of course, clients just want to get to their end goal ultimately, and they were very happy to talk about where they wanted to go and explore how we might avoid some common mistakes or pitfalls how we might be able to do things, make sure we don't go out of the budget. So we talk about what sort of money they want to spend, because this happened all too often with the older pros, that we would go beyond the client's budget and they would not be happy and maybe not work with us again.
And we can help them determine that budget. Sometimes clients help us with this sort of thing of like, oh, a website ought to cost whatever. Yeah. They have some idea like $30,000, $50,000. A website is $100,000. They have some idea for what the type of client that we work with, which is these mid-sized nonprofits who have a big staff and have lots of programs, and their websites are a complicated thing. They have some idea fixed in their head, but what we try to get at is, well, what can you justify spending on this? Like, what does it generate for you in terms of return? Can we set you up to where if you know that the website ought to be doing more for you, maybe we can take off a little chunk of it at a time and show that it is generating a return. Like you're getting a lot more traffic than you ever got before. So now your board's interested in funding the website more, and then you can do the next aspect of the project. Or is it generating donations? I mean, that's the greatest thing. If you can do work on the website and it directly makes money, wow, let's do more work on the website that might help do that. But yeah, I think, I was also nervous about broaching those sorts of subjects with folks. But as soon as you get into what are your goals, what is the budget, there's this sense of relief from the client, because I think the burden is now off of them as to or it's at least not completely on them, as to how do I achieve these goals that we've talked about with our board? Like, more people are reading our white papers for our think tank clients, or for our clients who are maybe like nonprofit publishers. How do more people buy our books? That they're not having to make those connections and give us the instructions, that instead they're just clearly communicating those goals. Our goal is to increase book sales by 20% by the end of the year. And we come to them with, okay, here are a bunch of possible solutions. Which of these sound reasonable? What of these, some of them require a lot of time from your team. Do you have this time to dedicate here? Or some of this is going to require, original artwork or lots of copywriting or whatever it is. And we can have that back and forth. That way they're not figuring out solutions on their own and like just giving us this checklist to work off of. It makes us into the, like, again, to use that analogy, the architect and the construction firm, rather than the client sort of acting as the architect and drafting up these plans and saying, I don't know, I think this is what a good website would look like. And it often misses the mark and is not quite the thing. And it's really asking them to do something that's way outside of their expertise. Like, no one would build a home this way. No one would build an office building that way, of saying, well, I'll draw up the plans and I'll just give them to you. That's a crazy thing to take on yourself. And
of course,
they're just as complicated, if not more so. Homes are kind of simple,
it
actually.
Is. I guess there is some part of the reason there is probably that, of course, software is more malleable than constructions are. You can always. It's always possible to fix things a bit more easily, but not in every way. I mean, some things do take time to fix. For example, if you have done your SEO very incorrectly, that there's not much we can do to speed up how long it takes Google to react to your fixes. That just takes time, depending on where your site stands. So it's not malleable in every way, but in general, I guess that could be a reason for that. But yeah, I think it's also just, I feel like our communication with clients has been so much different since the website has become something more than just some money they have to spend because it's part of the annual budget. So now I found that in many cases they're just much more excited to work with us and about the projects we're doing, because they know that we are on almost the same wavelength as to what's being done. It's not just we are your like task rabbits or code monkeys here ready for service, and we're not really that concerned about what happens after we've done our work. I think they've started viewing us at least somewhat differently, just from the tone of emails and such. And I'm not sure if you share that.
I think it totally. I think it's gone from the website is this expense. It's like rent.
Yeah,
they view it as office space. Like, we just have to do this. We have to have this. Just like we have to have, I don't know, heat and electric and these other things where you're just like, this is just cost going out, instead of something that drives returns, right? Like companies are happy to pay for advertising when they can see clear evidence of it driving business back through the door. Then you say, great, I spend $1 and I make 10. You would do that all day long. And the web is just like such a massive, the web, the internet, social media, like everything out there that we deal with has such a massive potential for return that you do want to it is transformative when clients get steered back in that direction and they suddenly see this as, okay, if I put effort into this, I get a tremendous payoff out of it, rather than I'm just giving some weird developer guy money to keep this website going that may or may not be doing anything for me, or that I just find is a struggle, or, I have dreams of more traffic and more results of whatever kind, more subscribers, more downloads of my white papers, more sales, but they never happen. When those things start to materialize, it's like, whoa, let's keep doing this. It does just turn a corner for folks. So road mapping really helps clients in that way. I want to keep us on our topic sheet here.
Yeah, sure.
It helps clients get the right solution, and that's huge. But it's also a way of us talking to them and establishing a relationship with them and working with them for some small amount of money up front, that doesn't involve a long-term commitment. And the way that we used to do business and the way that a lot of agencies do business is, we're going to generate an estimate for you, and you're either if you're in for a penny, in for as quickly as possible. First of all, because it's a free estimate.
Yep.
I have that in a separate. We'll get to why free estimates are bad, but it's also in for a penny, in for a pound. We're going to get married and do this right now. It's like the 90-day fiance insane version of entering into a contractor relationship, as opposed to, let's have a meeting, talk about goals, figure out if we can generate a really thoughtful proposal that makes sense, that you feel really confident in, and then pay us to actually make it. That
or
seems
someone else, but
and we do leave those things open to, you're not committed to making things with us. Here's an awesome plan. Your website should start with these things first. Maybe it has, some sort of social, email, video, podcast marketing component to it, whatever the plan is. But you've got a plan now. Execute it internally, execute it with another contractor, execute it with us, but you know where you're going. So it's that same thing of, pay the architect, figure out what the building is going to look like, be confident that you're going to get the right thing, and then choose if you're going to have them build or hire another builder. So that gives that client an incredible amount of confidence, this great portable plan. So I think the process is really beneficial, but we still get people who are unsure about it initially. And I think the biggest objection is, why should I pay you to do this planning session with me when I can get an estimate for free? Yeah. And you're starting to talk about that. So
I started talking about that.
Why are free estimates such a bad thing?
I mean, they can be okay, but at least in my experience, I just try to get them done as soon as possible, because I wasn't making any money on them. And it's not like we had a 100% conversion rate on these as well. So, and I think that's, I think most agencies who do this for free, they just rush it. You want to get it out as soon as possible. And you also, because you're doing that, you tend to overestimate a bit to just cover yourself,
and you tend to give the same plan out to everyone.
Yeah,
it's two things. It's like, here, what do? We build Drupal sites. They all kind of function the same way. They all almost kind of look the same, because we may be using the same template or theme or framework for it. And then, you sort of say, well, here's the basic thing, and then let's pad out the price for all the ways that this isn't going to work for the client, or we're going to have to change it. And people are probably familiar with this story, like going out and hiring an agency. They get you back this like long proposal, talks about all the SEO that their solution offers and whatever other benefits they have. And then you get like halfway into the process of building things. It's like, this does not work for us. It's not organizing our content the way we want it. It's not emphasizing who we are the right way. It's because you're getting a one size fits all solution, right? So you're hiring a building firm who they build 3 houses, right? Mm-hmm. But you say, yeah, but my mother-in-law is moving in with us. We talked about that at the beginning. So there needs to be a separate room with a bathroom on it for her, Or you say, but I've got one of my family members is disabled, so we need to have a ramp on the house. But we talked about having a pool in the backyard, all these things, but they're giving you their set template. It's the 1 or 2 or 3 plans that they do. And then it's like kind of fitting it to you after the fact. So like a free estimate is just a classic thing of you get what you pay for. Here's an estimate for building the one thing that we always build. It's not going to work well for you. And then let's just pad it out with money for changes. And even then we've had clients come to us like feeling so abused and sort of disenchanted with the whole process. They were all excited to build a new website. And they've come off of some experience with an agency where they got the one size fits all plan. They didn't really listen to them. The estimate was, maybe a super cool looking glossy presentation, but it had nothing to do with their individual needs. And now they're left with like this website that doesn't really work for them.
And they end up paying double to fix it or something like that.
Literally that's been the case for some of our work. And I'm glad to get the work, but I'm not happy that the client had to pay for the website twice.
Yeah, and not to talk about all the time that went into it, because that tends to be an issue as well. All the communication and fighting.
And like how much does that just like
details.
Burn your own capital within the organization? Think about that. Like your department is tasked with building a new website. It launches, it's not good, and now you're spending more money on building it again. You've sucked up a ton of your own team's time. Management is mad at you. Like avoid these problems by not rushing into everything without a plan. It's just not or with a plan that you've made yourself without consulting with somebody.
I don't want to discount. We still do sometimes. Let's say 80-90% of the time we are doing road mapping and making sure that we know where we're going with our projects. But there are projects that we still do I would say free proposals, not estimates, because there's a lot of detail in those. But when you have something like just a very straightforward software upgrade for an open source platform, something like that, and you are sure you're talking with a person that's very serious about the project, you don't think there's a high likelihood they're not going to go for it, we still do go and just give free proposals for those. But that's just I wouldn't say that's the majority of our work. But there is a case where road mapping is not applicable. It's not for everything.
Oh, just like you wouldn't hire
most things.
Yeah, you wouldn't hire an architect if you have to replace the furnace in your house.
No, yeah.
You just call the contractor and say, go down to the basement, rip the old one out, put the new one in. It's a very, you either need it or you don't need it, So those things we don't have to do some sort of like, let's talk about your goals, sort of conversation with people. Then it's like, okay, the website's not going to work unless you do this upgrade, or there's a chance of a security vulnerability or whatever it is. We still do that sort of work. But those are really the things where the website that's just a cost thing. Yeah. It's also just, it's not the sort of thing that we like to do, because it's not getting you anywhere. It's just,
but it's a starting point. It's like for a good relationship. So I wouldn't say I completely dislike doing it, but we don't do it much.
I guess what I mean is I'd like to pair those things with upgrading your software, and once that's done, let's add this feature in that you've wanted for a long time that's kind of holding you back from getting your message out there, doing what you're trying to do.
That's ideal, because essentially in most cases for these projects, the client feels like they paid and got nothing. It's like, buying sprinklers for your house, or, insurance or something. It doesn't, you have to be, I guess, I don't know, older or more experienced to feel like there's any value to those things. No one likes buying those things.
Yeah, it's preventing a loss.
To spend money again, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's preventing a loss as opposed to making you anything. It's
yeah. So I
software upgrades are just like it's like a safety feature. It's like, well, we just had the fire escapes inspected, whatever it is. It's just none of that generates more sales. None of it helps the top line.
But yeah, we've strayed off the path maybe a little bit, but I think that's still interesting. It's adding something of value into those kind of projects, whether it's something you can actually just throw in for free, possible as a bonus, or if it's something that the client wants to do that could be combined together, because it never feels good to pay for a pure upgrade. Maybe in some cases where clients have been really burned by not doing it, but I think in most cases there's just no value to it, and you can really, I think, make that transaction better by adding something that they will appreciate. That's maybe not that much work to do. That
ties into the other objection I had. One of the other objections I had on my list that clients have given us when they're skeptical about the process, which is like, I know what I need, so just build it. There are those limited cases of our software support date is running out in 5 months. We know there's going to be no more security updates to this, so we've got to get that done. Then you do know what you need, and we can just do that. But when the goals are something like, I need to grow my email list by 50% by the end of the year because we feel like it's lacking, and that's the challenge that our board has given us. Okay, so you know how to get there, and you don't think that people who have maybe worked on dozens of nonprofit websites and help people grow their lists have anything to add to that. Like if that person feels that way, it's like then I think they should just go on to guru.com or whatever that's called now and hire some developer and just have them do it, because it's going to be cheaper than us, and we're not really interested in like doing that sort of work. But if you're interested in talking about what it really is the best solution for this, then we want to consult with you and put together a plan that's informed by all of our experience. If that's not of value to you, then I think find somebody cheaper.
Not everyone's always in a place to spend a lot of money, so that's fine. But it depends also on what's at stake. If it's just an experiment, or if there's something like you said, growing the email list by 50%, what does that mean? Do they want to increase the donations? So if you realistically want to reach that goal, you also have to look at what kind of people you are attracting to the list. Maybe you don't need 50%. Maybe you just need 20% of very good people. Very
what if your list grew less but your open rate went up because you did better things with email? What if you stopped people from unsubscribing, like you just retained more people on your list? Maybe that would be the way that you tackle it. But there's we could talk about the 12 different ways that you can tackle that problem, or try to validate if that even is the problem you ought to be solving. And that's where we bring a lot of value to people is figuring out how to achieve those goals the best way and defining those goals the best way.
Yeah.
And that's what they're really getting for the price of going through this road mapping planning session. You're buying our experience, you're buying all of our knowledge, and you're mitigating risk. You're trying to bring risk down by saying,
whole investment.
I'm not just rolling the dice on, I bet that if we do X, it's going to work out.
Sometimes doing nothing is better, or waiting a bit is.
Yeah, or there's always risk with any of these things. You're betting that a certain thing is going to do well, but you'd rather place a bet on a football team after reading all about the health of their quarterback and knowing how their running backs are doing and their receivers, and you'd rather have a knowledge-based bet, a really informed bet, rather than a sort of shot in the dark. And And sometimes people are coming to us with not a shot in the dark. They're coming to us with some information, but just not all the information that they need to make the best choice. And so that kind of brings us to, and we're getting to our time goal here.
Yeah.
Like who the best client is for us. And I think our best client is somebody who's willing to say, I don't know everything, and I want to talk to somebody who has relevant experience on this, who can help me figure out my goals. And how best to achieve those goals. It's somebody who has the budget to work with us. So we typically work with nonprofits who have a budget between maybe 5 and 25 million a year. That's where we found it's comfortable because they have a person or sometimes a small team who's in charge of the marketing end of things. That might be separate from like a communications person who's about like talking to the press or talking to people in government or doing all this sort of relationship building that nonprofits do, but more the marketing person who's going to be generating like printed materials or just doing the website, working on email, social media marketing, things like that. So they've got the budget to pay us. That's sort of necessary on our end of things.
Yeah, we have had issues with that in the past. Overestimating their
ability. And, so you've got to be upfront about that because I don't want to waste your time. We certainly don't want to waste
got to be upfront about that from the very beginning. Yes.
Yeah.
It's best for everyone.
But that they know where they're going in terms of their they have an established brand. They have a good idea of their message. They know what they need to achieve there. But they need somebody to come in and help them figure out how that is built. And that's anything from all the technical stuff that goes into building a website and doing the search engine marketing or search engine optimization that's on site, but also things like creating a funnel for them, as in how does social media and email drive traffic back to your website? How do you end up converting that converting that traffic over into email subscribers or donors or downloaders of your latest white paper or customers, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve? How do we find those people and direct them towards the goal that you want to accomplish? Yeah, so folks who have that marketing team, have that message, know the goals that they want to achieve, and just want someone to say, how do I get there? I know a little bit, but not enough to do this myself, certainly. So if you feel like you're a person like that who is in a situation and wants to collaborate and knows like, I know I could be doing, but I don't know exactly how to get there, like you are the person we ought to be talking to. So I hope we've explained everything. Moving away from the client being the architect to us being the architect, road mapping being this conversation, a sort of questionnaire that we go through with folks, a planning session, and coming up with a blueprint for going forward, and how it just really benefits clients. And I mean, it is kind of amazing how, in some of the relationships that we've had, people have maybe come to us with one expectation, and sometimes that expectation is like they think that we're going to spend a low amount. And after having this conversation with us, we say, well, I think you could really justify spending a lot more than what you were planning because you would get all of this out of it. And it's totally counter to what we were doing the first few years of being in business. Where you're trying to just drive down that price and say, oh, we can do it for so little money.
Why not do it? That's the main.
Just, don't do that. Just stick to the basics. Instead saying, here's something where we can really generate a return and get something done. And, we've seen success with all these other clients. You should try to pursue this. And clients being like overjoyed that they're going to be spending more money than they thought they would, because of course you're going to be joyful when you think like, oh, this is going to generate something. This is going to have an effect. As opposed to when they came to us, they thought, well, we're going to spend this amount of money. It's not really going to do anything. It's going to keep this website up that we kind of have to have.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all know that feeling.
Mindset. Yeah.
Being directed towards a better solution to some problem we are solving in our lives. And we do feel really good that we did decide to. I don't have a concrete example, but I think everyone has had that experience in their personal lives at some point. and it's a good feeling to get what you were looking for, even though you had to pay a bit more.
Switching from a PC to a Mac and like getting rid of the headaches, even though you paid more money for the computer.
That was fun for me. Yeah, that was fun for me.
But there's also, but you can think of little things like that where it's generated a return, or it's like saved time, or it's been way more convenient, and you think it was really worth spending money on this because I'm no longer thinking about this. I'm no longer wasting my time on it. That's the sort of thing that we're trying to do.
For our ideal client, that's a big problem. Just wasting time. Oh, we have to waste a lot of time on this again this year, making a new website. It's going to take weeks of our team's time.
And not really worrying about it and checking in at weekly meetings with everybody about when is the website going to be fixed, all that sort of stuff. So I think we've covered all we want to cover. We're going to be trying to produce one of these shows a week going forward, talking about different topics, from strategies about how to do your web marketing better, and tactics, like individual little things that you can do. And I hope over the next several weeks, I know with lots of our clients, this is kind of like a downtime of year after this like big glut of donations at the end of the year. So I hope it's a time to pause and think about some of the things that you might do to refresh your website, refresh your marketing. And we're going to have a lot of tips like that going forward. And remember, over the next several days, to change that copyright notice at the bottom of your website to say 2020 instead of 2019.
So most have that automated by now, but yes.
Yes, well, some don't. But okay, well, until next week. All right. Talk to you then.